Hello and welcome. I'm Amelia Hansen, she, her, project coordinator for Flip the Script on Plastics at Plastic Pollution Coalition. Thank you for joining our July webinar, Greening Hollywood Sets to Flip the Script on Plastics. Plastic Pollution Coalition is a nonprofit communications and advocacy organization that collaborates with an expansive global alliance of organizations, businesses, and individuals to create a more just, equitable, and regenerative world free of plastic pollution and its toxic impacts. Flip the Script on Plastics is an initiative to help the entertainment industry model real solutions to the plastic pollution crisis, both on set and in storylines. We know that life imitates art, and by showing package-free, reusable, and refillable systems in popular TV shows and movies, we can influence culture and change the perception of toxic throwaway plastic as being normal, because it's not. We have 3 poll questions today to get a sense of who's joining us. Each question will only appear for about 20 seconds, so please answer quickly. Poll 1. Where are you joining us from today? Please select one answer. Looks like the majority of you are joining us from North America, though we have a few folks joining from elsewhere in the world, so thank you for joining today. Okay, poll 2. What best describes the area of focus of your work? Select one. Great, well, it looks like the majority of you are either in the nonprofit sphere, media, or business. Thank you all for joining. And finally, our 3rd poll question. If you work in film or television, what best describes the area of your work? Please select all that apply. Great. Thank you for answering our poll questions. Looks like we have a number of folks that are either crew members, working in production, and some writers joining us. Thank you all. So on to our panelists. Originally, we had planned for Fran Drescher, actor, environmentalist, and the president of the Screen Actors Guild to join our webinar. Unfortunately, due to her duties on the picket line for the actors' strike, Fran is unable to join us today. Fran and the actors of SAG-AFTRA and the writers of the WGA have our full support for the strike and on the picket lines. We're happy to share that actor Ellen Crawford will participate on behalf of Fran Drescher today on our panel. Therefore, today, we are going to hear from Ellen Crawford, actor and union activist, Asher Levin, creative director of the Environmental Media Association, and Emellie O'Brien, founder and CEO of Earth Angel, in conversation with Jordan Howard. So it is my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Jordan Howard. Jordan is a storyteller, entrepreneur, and the founder of ShftSpace. She has advised brand leaders, foundation officers, and politicians, and is now cementing her legacy in story, art, education, and real estate development. Her work focuses on enabling verticals to invest, equip, and activate people and communities to solve problems for people and the planet. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you, Amelia. Thanks so much. I'm excited to have this conversation today. Excited to talk to the panelists. This has been a tumultuous summer for the planet. And since we are a planet of mainly ocean, it's been a shifting ocean for us all. So it's an important time to talk about Hollywood, to talk about sets. ShftSpace is a storytelling studio where we work with trusted brand partners, foundation coalitions, creators, makers, and artists to tell stories, create architectural development that inspires solutions, but all at the helm of well-being, solving these different problems. It's why I'm excited to moderate this conversation today and talk about ecosystems, and particularly production sets. I've been super inspired as I've been hearing about all the differences that have been made, the ask and calls on set, whether it be Abbott Elementary. We were at the Hollywood Climate Summit a few weeks ago, listening to and hearing about Abbott Elementary and Quinta B's ask and differences that they've made on set. Spider-Man, and everything everywhere all at once. So I'm excited to get into this discussion. I think sets are impactful for solutions. It's a space where you have Hollywood creating these different cities and neighborhoods for lengthy amounts of days. So let's talk about what can be launched, what can be created. Let's go into introducing the first panelist, Asher.
Hey guys, I'm jumping on right now. Hello.
So
Hi, everybody.
Let me tell them about you first, Asher. So Asher Levin, he is the creative director of Environmental Media Association. Asher has had over 20 years of experience in entertainment and NGOs. Asher has steered multiple films as a director, writer, and producer, co-founded Powerhouse Digital Media Content Studio, BRAT, created hit shows, and worked on campaigns and content for numerous brands. Asher has also created campaigns and branded content for Sierra Club, World Wildlife Fund, and many more NGOs. As the creative director for Environmental Media Association, Asher has helped steer all content and marketing, as well as produce annual events such as the 30-year-old iconic Environmental Media Awards. And shout out to Debbie Levin. Always shout out to Debbie Levin. Welcome, Asher.
Thank you. Thank you for the illustrious introduction. Appreciate it. And thank you everybody for joining today. The green seal slide is up. That's our internal sustainability pledge. I'll put it like that, and I'll explain it afterwards. From different productions to do things correctly, which gets easier and easier every year as our planet gets harder and harder to fix. And I think that that's the chasm that we are living with today in 2023. We have all the intellect to know how to sustain our life now, with the foresight that there are certain things that we can't move backwards with, and we have the innovation, hopefully, to combat things that we have inflicted on ourselves from the past. With regards to Jordan, what shoot me with some stuff so I don't just ramble.
Oh, we just want you to introduce yourself right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All
good. I'm Asher. I have been a part of Environmental Media Association for 2 decades. I started doing marketing and project by project, and then moved into communications and ultimately running creative director and co-running the organization. We have 2 main annual events. One is the Environmental Media Awards, which honors film and television and luminaries for work in promoting environmental messaging, encouraging sustainability and innovation, and of course honoring activism, which is very important when it comes to the fight for our planet. And then we have the Emma Impact Summit, which is a business-focused summit that regularly, every year is a little bit different, but we have tons of panels, fireside chats, keynotes, people premiere ideas there, everything from the entertainment sector, but then also to other sectors we work with, automotive, tech, clothing, like fashion, food, all the stuff that we work with alongside our entertainment partners. So that's one of the more exciting things that we do. And then around our 2 big events, we just are constantly putting out content. Our goal, and you can follow us on Green for Emma on all social, Green for Emma on all social. We want to be a resource for everybody, an education resource. And my vision with the organization as we move into probably, I believe it would be the 2nd decade of having social media as an anchor for the way that we all communicate, is to allow our organization to be a beacon from our weekly newsletters, Substack, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, Twitter, just all over the place. We are continuing to build forth. We have a great new activist board to be able to have original content internally, blogs internally, but also aggregate stuff that people might not be seeing. And that is, the Environmental Media Association was founded by fantastic folks in the entertainment community with the goal of spreading messaging about the environment through film and television, because that was the media of the time. More and more every day, I find myself watching less television and being on my phone more, being on my computer more, getting my information that way. And so the idea that I can, use our organization to explain to communities things that they don't even understand that they could be doing is hugely, important. And obviously our celebrity board members, as well as, our social media creators that are a part of our board and activists that we work with, are fully aware of their power. And so we all try to, use that to educate in the greatest level, in every certain facet. We have had a lot of wins. We've obviously had losses, as far as what we've been able to get through on the legal standpoint through the Fed, but many of our wins come through the education sector. We are integral in the Just Label It movement, which helped to successfully get GMO labeling in all markets in America on cereal boxes. It, was a full corporate push. We have been successful in the past with helping to stop the Keystone Pipeline in Nebraska, which then became a bellwether for the whole country. And we are always on the front lines. We were on the front lines for Standing Rock. Currently we are working with lower income communities all over America to educate them on not only learning where they can shop outside of food deserts that are in their community, but also working with community organizers to educate about green jobs, which is the fastest moving sector in America. So we look at these things and they're hugely important. And then of course, working with Plastic Pollution Coalition and with SAG, we are moving forward with plans to create a green rider, having actors insist that there is no plastic placement on camera, and trying our hardest to reduce the use of single-use plastic on sets, which is is a challenge that we're tackling.
Awesome. Tell us, so this green still, how long has this green still been in conception? What's its
We've had the
birth-
green.
We've had
What's his birthday? Oh man, 25 year, 24 year. Like, it's been around a really long time. My mom, Debbie, who you mentioned, who has been running the organization for, since 1999. She went to a set, I believe, in 2003 or 2002. So I guess it's around 21 years. And she couldn't believe how much waste there was still in an environmental organization. She asked why everybody was just, blowing through paper on their sides, and why there wasn't recycling bins on stages. It was that long ago, and she worked with a handful of board members that have been in our organization forever. One of them, Hart Bachner, is a character actor who has done a lot of television directing for many years. You guys may know him if you're fans of Die Hard as Ellis, who is kind of famously has that line, Hans Bubby, so he. He was part of the steering committee. Ed Begley was part of the steering committee. Wendy Malick, many of our folks that are still part of our senior board, and they all sat down and they created 10 rules to start with, and then those 10 rules became 20, 20 became 100, and now we have a big peachy that we are actually working with other folks on this Zoom on to make sure that we keep updating. We work with back then there was no sustainability people at the studios. That wasn't even a job. So we worked with people that were helping with that. And now there's sustainability departments with multiple people. And we work with them monthly on what new innovations they have. How can we make the sets greener? How can we make them more sustainable? How can we reduce our carbon footprint? What vendors have the latest in technology, from, solar paneling on trailers to, paperless sets, and so forth, and then even into health. How do we get more vegan options? And then obviously our push now towards removing all single-use plastic, really popularizing stuff we've been doing for the last 10 years, or water hydration stations, canteen programs, and so forth. And then aside from that, within this Green Seal program, so basically, if a production wants to be Green Seal certified, they go through our head of logistics internally. We give them the forms. They have a checklist. The checklist is probably 80% of it has to do with physical production, 20% of it has to do with content. It's a scoreboard, basically. And you score, you get your normal Green Seal, gold, platinum, and it's a bragging rights thing. But it's also something that a lot of studios require now, just in general, like Disney and Apple. Apple doesn't approve any projects unless they're Green Seal approved at this point. So they all have to come to us, and it's one of the, I'd say on this call, one of the only good things that the tech community has brought to the entertainment business at the moment is a dedication towards sustainable practices, because that's a big part of their internal CSRs.
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to bring up. I wanted you to bring up this history, not just the timing, but the history of the evolution to get us where we are now, and the action taken onto set. So I think that's important, and it's important to be able to go back and say Green Seal, the technology companies that were also a part of that, but also like, what does that mean for right now, and the work being done right now? Because that's when you bring in folks like Emellie O'Brien, or EOB. Now I'm going to introduce Emellie. Emellie O'Brien is the founder and CEO of Earth Angel, another part of this ecosystem. So Emellie is a pioneer of the sustainable filmmaking community. She's worked with over 100 major motion pictures and television series to reduce their environmental impact since 2011. Her sustainable leadership on the amazing of Spider-Man 2 contributed to it being acclaimed as the most eco-friendly blockbuster in Sony Pictures history. Emellie is a climate Reality Corps leader, an inaugural Tory Burch Foundation Fellow, and sits on the board of the Hollywood Climate Summit and the Productions Initiative Association. Welcome, EOB. How's it going? So welcome. And just like, tell us which role in the light does Earth Angels play for this ecosystem?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jordan. And thanks everyone at Plastic Pollution Coalition for hosting this conversation. I'm truly honored to be here. So Earth Angel is a sustainability agency dedicated to reducing the environmental impact of entertainment production. So that is largely films and television series, but we also work with commercial productions and live events and things of that nature. We've been around since 2013, and we work all across the US and Canada. And I've even worked with some international partners as well for productions abroad. But basically, our mission at Earth Angel is to integrate a standardized method of environmental accountability throughout the entertainment industry. We just believe that people should be making content without, not at the expense of the planet, right, is really what it boils down to. And so that's our core philosophy. And we really believe in the power of this industry to help cultivate and leverage positive social and environmental change, because it is so influential in terms of how we interact with one another and behavior and just the way our cultures are formed. So these are a variety of different services that we provide. We do corporate consulting services with various different studios and stakeholders within the industry, film offices, etc. The production sustainability I mentioned. We also have a service called Good Riddance, where we specifically help productions do storage clear outs and repurpose materials. Eco Labs, which is our sort of educational offerings, as well as we provide a lot of the zero waste equipment and supplies that productions need to achieve their sustainability goals. Here's a sample of some of the projects that we've worked with. We're really proud to have worked with a lot of award-winning projects in particular, but we've worked with every single studio and streamer over the years, and in so many different places and in so many different scopes and sizes of projects too. So we're really excited to kind of be here and sharing some of those experiences and how we've made this work on film sets. So just to kind of orient us a little bit, Asher talked about Emma and the studios being a real catalyst for change in this industry. We really saw that come into play when the Sustainable Production Alliance released this report in March of 2021, which was the first time that the studios ever released information on aggregate details of carbon emissions of film and television productions. So we saw that on the feature film side, tentpole productions were as high as 3,370 metric tons of CO2. And then on the television series side, average carbon footprint for those hour-long drama scripted series were around 77 metric tons. I want to kind of break that down into layman's terms of what that means. So 3,370 metric tons of CO2 is the equivalent of 424 homes' energy use for a year, almost 8,000 barrels of oil consumed, and it would take nearly 4,000 acres of US forest in a year to sequester that amount of carbon. And again, this is a single tentpole production. So the impact is substantial, and that's why there's so many great resources out there that are actively working on reducing that. So in our experience at Earth Angel, we have found that an average long form, so feature film or television series production can consume an estimated 104,831 single-use plastic water bottles. So that obviously number goes up a lot if we are talking about a production that is shooting for longer periods of time or has larger crew counts or extras counts and things of that nature. So it can be much higher than this. Again, this is sort of what we're seeing as the average. Some productions are obviously lower too. The good news is we are avoiding single-use plastic water bottles very successfully on sets right now. So since our founding in 2013, we've helped avoid almost 4 million single-use plastic water bottles. And we do that through a variety of different programs and different dispenser systems that we use tailored to different crews and different circumstances of where we're filming. It's very different, of course, if we're on a stage versus in a remote location versus in a city, urban kind of setting. So we've, over the years, been able to observe how productions and crew members kind of move and conduct themselves throughout the day so that we can figure out ways to keep everybody hydrated while avoiding single-use plastics. There's also other issues beyond plastic water bottles, right? The plastic water bottle kind of is the most sort of iconic and visible representation of this on a set. But there's other, obviously, examples of this where we're trying to replace plastics, things like reusable catering and craft service items with cutlery and dishware and to-go ware as well. Reusable wardrobe items too. This is now much more common. So we're avoiding like the single-use dry cleaning plastic bags more and more. And then just better single-use alternatives when we do need single-use, because there are particular production circumstances where the reusables are still very challenging for us. Things like driving scenes or huge stunt sequences and things like that. So for those areas, we're still trying to use better single-use alternatives like compostables or aluminum bottled water versus plastic when we can. Again, that's the last resort item. We're always emphasizing reusables as much as possible with our productions. I also want to emphasize that there is still a long ways to go. While we are tackling single-use plastics on sets, there are still issues that we haven't come up with great solutions for yet. The amount of shrink wrap we go through in the set decoration and props department, for example, is still quite high, and trying to come up with an alternative for that keeps those items protected while in transit without the single-use plastics and in storage and things like that are still a work in progress. Things like food packaging, the amount of food that we have to purchase that's coming in for our catering and craft service departments is often arriving in plastic too. So we still have very big challenges around that, of course, and things like cleaning supplies and all the other ways that plastic shows up in so many everyday products that we also consume as productions. So I'm gonna pause there because Jordan, I know you have more great talking points for us all to discuss. But I just wanted to kind of tease a little bit for you all, some of the things that we've been working on, some of the solutions that are out there, but still some of those work in progress items as well.
Thanks, Emellie. It's possible. It's possible. And now I'm excited to introduce our final panelist, Ellen Crawford. Ellen Crawford has been a working actor all her life on stage, television, and film. Ellen is probably best known as Nurse Lydia Wright on the iconic series ER. She starred in the comedy series Boomers and recently appeared on The Rookie. Ellen is a passionate union activist, having focused these many years of service and on organizing and education, serving as chair of the SAG-AFTRA National Organizing Committee and as a vice president of the California Labor Federation. We're honored to have you with us today, Ellen. Ellen was on the picket lines before she came with us. She brought the picket.
8:30 this morning. Yeah, I did comb my hair. So
Thank you for being here, Ellen.
thank you so much. Well, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm the panelists are so amazing. It's just such impressive work that truly is making a difference in the world. I said when Fran asked me to do this, I said it's going to be a real challenge to fill her designer power pumps, but I'll do my best. She's, as we all know, she is a force of nature and defending nature, which is great. So I know that she wants me to talk about, and as do I, Green Council, which Fran has founded. I was fortunate enough to be able to be at the launch in Washington, D.C. at the Motion Picture Association on April 28th of this year. And it was very exciting, legislators and labor leaders and celebrities, and it was a wonderful turnout. I want to talk about what Green Council is. Green Council seeks to advance eco-responsible entertainment as a collaborative effort and inspire audiences to do the same. Green Council seeks to leverage the influence of our on-screen members to challenge audiences for the greater good through a vision whereby all entertainment entities can come together in unity with a single objective to take on environmental missions that are doable, winnable, and influential. Green Council is an honor system commitment to put into practice each mission with ownership and pride. And Green Council is also designed to underscore the independent efforts of each entity in addition to Green Council's collaborative missions. The Green Council criteria: an environmental issue that is demonstrative on screen, practiced on set, and a doable audience challenge at home, which I think is really crucial. That's why we're doing it all. Dramatic reduction of single-use plastic, everybody here knows, and an increase in reusables by the entire entertainment industry and its audiences will have a profound impact on reducing our carbon footprint, ocean pollution, fossil fuel proliferation, microplastic consumption, land pollution, air pollution, and health threat to humans and all beings. And I think Emellie filled you in with some of the numbers that are really frightening about the amount of single-use plastic that can be used on a set. Now, through this initiative and future ones, we would invite you, and I know Fran would want to say, to invite you on the hero's journey and invite our audiences to do the same. That is essentially Green Council. And thank you all for those of you who are already supporting us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ellen. Now we're going to move on to the discussion part of our panel. I'll start by asking our panelists some questions submitted by the attendees ahead of time. Feel free to please ask us more questions, and we'll see if we can handle them and answer them in the Q&A feature, okay? All right, let's start. And for our panelists, feel free to answer the questions as your intuition raises your hand. You don't every question isn't for everyone. Sometimes I will say, hey, Asher, hey, Emellie, hey, Ellen, but feel free to answer or also not answer at the same time too, okay? So what is the level of awareness of environmental issues in Hollywood? How aware are people? Ellen just said a whole bunch of really large, made a bunch of really large environmental statements. What's the level of awareness?
I'll start here on this. When we first started the organization, there was no awareness. I mean, there was Ed Begley Jr. in a bicycle and, a couple of other folks. And everybody thought it was kind of weird and fringe and hippie, when Norman and Lynn Lear and Alan and Cindy Horn founded EMA in the late 80s, early 90s. It was really to be a counterpart to NRDC, which was another organization that they started. So NRDC handled the legal stuff, and the EMA side of it was really very much just meeting with showrunners specifically, and some filmmakers, and talking about how they can get these messages into their programming. I think that the tipping point, at least from my experience with awareness in Hollywood and it becoming more than just a phase, was Inconvenient Truth. Al Gore, went from agency to agency, from studio to studio, and became a rock star with Davis as they did this movie. And everyone who was my age was awakened to what was happening what's happening right now today. It's literally what he was talking about, right? Like 15 years ago. And I think that a whole generation of environmentalists, specifically in the entertainment sector, grew out of Inconvenient Truth. We were very early on. We were the ones who popularized the Toyota Prius in 2000. It was a goofy little car, looked like a toaster. And we worked with Toyota North America, with Mike Sullivan, LA car guy, who had the Hollywood dealership that was featured on a lot of television shows too. And we made these really funny lists, kind of hard to get to get the car. We got celebrities to come to the Academy Awards, Golden Globes, you name it, in their Priuses, and we made green cool. And I think that was right around the same time as Inconvenient Truth. And so there felt like there was a new wave of optimism that we could really talk about the message. And ever since then, from the basically Gen X to millennial, just like any other sector, by the way, like if you look at the tech community, one of the main principles of every tech company is sustainability, right? I think that anybody who grew up that is 40 or older, 40 or younger, my bad, 40 or younger, understands the risks that the generation before them put on us and the responsibilities. And so the entertainment community is no different. And I think that the same way that, Gen Z specifically looks at LGBTQ issues specifically, is the way that millennials and some Gen X before it look at environmental issues. Like, we grew up, we understood it, and this is just what we do, right? So I think that it carries over. By the way, the time you get the Gen Xers, Gen Zers, and even some of the Zoomers now, they don't even know that there wasn't a thing before called climate change, and that there wasn't a thing that wasn't sustainable, because it's just their parents have now raised them to think that way. So, it helps in that way.
EOB, tell us like what's the least wasteful set that you've seen? Since we have been doing it, like Asher talks about, there has been evolution, but like even now, what's the least wasteful set? Take us there. What did they do differently?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like, so just to kind of explain our process a little bit at Earth Angel and how we get there. So we really function as a sustainability department for these shows, right? So in the same way you have an electric department, you have a catering department, etc. We know that there's so many facets of sustainability. It really requires multiple people and their knowledge and expertise and experience to kind of bring to the table. So usually what we do is we have an eco supervisor who helps in the pre-planning, in the pre-production rather stages, really come up with how are we going to hydrate everyone without single-use plastics, right? And that's usually like involving a water logistics meeting where we have to bring in all the people who typically manage water on a set. That's the craft service department, that's catering, that's the first team PAs, right? Who are typically the ones who have to fly in water to the actors last minute. It's the background PAs as well, and other set PAs. So there's a lot of different people who touch this on a set. And then we also have to figure out how it works for each individual department, right? So we walk through the options with them, these kinds of dispensers, these kinds of reusables, This person's in charge of refilling, and really kind of come up with that plan and that strategy. And then once we get to principal photography, that's where we have our, what we call our eco reps. So those are like our boots on the ground sustainability folks who are physically setting up those zero waste stations. They also assist with the plastic free hydration systems and communicating if things like need to move or we need refills, or, so having designated people assigned to it is really what makes it work on a day-to-day basis. And having that really strong collaboration amongst all of those different departments who are interfacing with this is how we make it happen. And then obviously through education of those crew members as well, we have memos that are sent out in advance in pre-production. We also send out progress reports and newsletters so people see, hey, guess what? We've avoided 30,000 single-use plastic bottles so far. Keep it up. Like it's work, when you show people the impact too, there's a connection around, oh, this habit that I'm changing is doing something, it is adding up and it is having an impact. So that's really what we're looking at when we're talking about a least wasteful set. It's someone who's really created a really strong strategic plan with all of those relevant department heads in the beginning, because we don't want to slow them down. We can't slow them down, right? They have to do what they need to do to achieve the creative vision of the show on time and on budget. And so it's about working with them to create solutions that really work best for them. So that we're not here to be the eco police and tell people what they can and cannot do. We're here to be a resource. So once that really good plan is in place and you have the strategic oversight on a set, that you eliminate those single-use plastics, you have fewer generators and emitting less fuel, and we have more electric vehicles on set, and all the different ways that we're really trying to reduce our environmental impact.
While we're here, because I'm sure people are thinking, what are some of these resources? Who are the best caterers? Is it electric? You said electric vehicles. Is it electric vehicles? Is it organic food? Is it reuse? Who are some of your favorites?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's so many different out there, depending on the region that you're working in. But in terms of, I wouldn't say there's like a specific catering and craft service company.
Yeah, I mean, just jumping in there too, really quickly, like it's a B2B thing, and also depending on states, and this is something that Emellie and I've talked about a little bit. But and we talk about it with sustainability officers all the time, like the most sustainable way to be sustainable is to buy sustainably local. Like that's just the bottom line. So like, that goes with the construction, and that goes with the waste management, and that goes with the food. Like if you're even if you think that you're being sustainable, if you have it shipped, then that's not sustainable either. You know what I mean? So you're trying, I mean, with some places you're just not gonna, there's, I've shot in Las Cruces before, no offense to Las Cruces, super fine place, but like not a lot of stuff there as far as organic and sustainable. So you got to be flexible. I mean, Emellie, what have you found? Are there certain cities and states that are easier to work in than others?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, the answer is yes to that. But I would say, the bigger production hubs are obviously going to have the most infrastructure and resource, right? So we find that when we're doing this in Los Angeles, in New York, in Atlanta, in Toronto, Vancouver, it is a much more plug and play situation, because we've had these conversations with caterers and craft service companies who work in those cities over and over and over again. Like they've heard it enough from us. When we call them up, they're like, okay, we get it. It's the green thing. Like we don't have to explain what we're doing. A lot of people have grown accustomed to working this way now. But when we shoot in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, it's a different story. Like, so those areas pose challenges. But yeah, I would say there's no one like sort of magic wand, like this is going to work for every single place. There's different local regional vendors and suppliers and and crew members we work with, just depending on the production. Yeah.
Yeah, think local, and I'm talking about this from a producer standpoint too. Like, think local, even with catering. It's the simplest thing, but like, if you're in an area where the food is, if it's in the South, if the food is Southern, like, order Southern food. Don't seek out, something that is probably not organic there because it's not organically made there. Like, so, if you're like, I've shot many times in New Mexico, like, we seek to have indigenous food and Mexican food on set because that's the stuff that's going to be the most natural products in it, right? And so you have to think about where you are, and instead of trying to like bring in tofu or whatever it is, this might be plant-based in a different way. I mean, look, seriously, there just might be places where they're like, they don't have that, and if they do, it's crap, right? And instead it's like, we just need a vegetable option. We need beans, and I like to speak on the food stuff because that's what I care about when I'm on set working. But I mean, it is a sort of macro of everything. The same thing as you were talking about with regards to like wardrobe too. That's another thing. Like, don't make as many constructions. Don't, like, in terms of like, don't try to manufacture the clothing. Look and see if there's wardrobe houses nearby where you can reuse things that have happened before. And go and see if it doesn't have to have a double on it. Go vintage. Like, these are really easy ways that are like no-brainer ways to be sustainable, that have been sustainable for thousands of years, versus like trying to come up with a new creative way of doing things.
What are some of the barriers? What are some of the barriers? Like you mentioned it a little bit when you talking about the places like the Fargos of the world and the Oklahomas, and shout out to the South always. But what are some of these barriers on set? And even like Ellen, from the talent's perspective, what could some of these barriers be to implementing plastic-free sets?
Well, obviously, someone who's number one on the call sheet will have the influence to say that. Most of us are just working people, and I want to talk for a minute. I know we're talking only on sets, but because we're supposed to, especially with Green Council, the idea is to have the audience be involved in this too at home. I want to talk for a minute about what we are doing on the picket line, which is a teaching moment where this is the challenge. Everyone wants to help, so they come with cases and cases of single-use plastic bottled water. And they give it to you, and you're like, we're trying now. We say thank you. We put that aside. We are using, our water and asking people when we're talking about the strike, it's say, please bring your own water bottle, and using, paper cups. And it's a teaching moment because each time they don't have their own water bottle and we give them a cup, we say, now here's, if they actually ask for a water bottle and we have them because somebody donated them, they get a discussion with each bottle, which is, I'm giving you this now because somebody donated it, but it won't be here tomorrow, probably. So take it, bring it back and refill it, or bring your own bottle and refill it. But we're trying not to do that. And I have to say that everybody on the line, without exception, that heard that went, oh yeah. I mean, it made sense to them. Nobody was complaining. And it's been great to have that many kind of teaching moments. I think there's a big problem that we all face, those of us who, look, I didn't like drinking water out of plastic a couple of decades ago or more. Before Clinton brought Mountain Valley Water to the White House, I was like, can I get something in glass, just because I didn't like the taste. It didn't seem healthy to me. It didn't taste good. But the fact of the matter is I have the privilege to do that. And I think I know in one of the webinars, Fran was talking about the convenience, the marketing of this to families. And I think because we're trying to get this into the audience, the problem is that everybody wants their family to eat and drink well. And they were told your tap water is not safe. So we went, oh, okay, well, here's bottled water. And now I can't afford the one in the glass bottle, but I can go down to the grocery store and fill it up out of one of those machines, which of course we know is probably just full of all kinds of horrible cancer causing things. But they think they're doing the right thing. And then put on top of that people, and this is where what we're doing right now on the line and why Fran and all of the unions joining together now, it's so important. The income inequality right now, the food insecurity out there with really enormous populations. Labor Community Services from LA County Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO, feeds tens of thousands of families because these are working people. Some are in the union, some aren't, but these are, I think we have to address that on a bigger scope before we can. I think they don't know what to do. You know, we get donations there also. Here's all these water bottles. I think there has to be some clear messages and some thought given to the audience that goes, what are the rules? What should I do? I know what I'm not supposed to do, but how do I make this work when I'm working 3 jobs to support my family? I have very little time. I have very little money. To find those solutions for our audience and maybe do stories about that will help guide them in a sustainable existence in something that works for them. Just as Emellie does this amazing job of going from set to set to set, I think we have to find what is sustainable for someone who makes minimum wage and is, you know.
Yeah, one thing I would jump in just really quickly on here
Please
with
do.
regards to on-camera storytelling
Mhm.
is there's no reason for there ever to be a single-use plastic item on camera. There's no reason for a production to use it, to be honest. Like, it doesn't serve, it's not easier for me to put a water bottle in someone's hand than to have them have a thermos in their hand. Like, it's the same thing. And what are we saying then? It's like, you know, it was pretty easy for everybody to decide 10 years ago that nobody should smoke cigarettes anymore, you know, and you know, just to kind of go to you quickly to Ellen, what you were saying about income disparity, you know, people have enough money to still spend insane amounts of money on tobacco if they really want it. So they should, you know, so get it, you know, having the right kind of water, you get a Brita filter and you have it in your house, right? You know, if you're able to, that is a low income solution for these situations. But if you don't have it role modeled on camera, if you
Exactly.
don't have the bad guy having the water bottle in his hand and the good guy having a water glass, then you're not doing it right, and there's no point. You'd have to be really sick to as a filmmaker to be like, I'm gonna on purpose have my hero just blast through water bottles. You know what I mean? And I know it sounds silly, but it's super easy. It is just simply a studio, whichever one wants to step up, and we've talked to them about this, saying in their things, you cannot have a character use a water bottle in front of the camera. That is it. It's a strike. You don't allow nudity in a PG movie. Why do they have? Why is it okay to have someone holding a single-use plastic water? So, and Amelia is mentioning that this is something that's happening right now, which I know it is. And so I just want to point out to everybody, like, this is not, and this is from a creative standpoint, even more so than an organizational standpoint, is the easiest thing in the world to go through your prop department and say, no plastic water bottles. That's all you need to do. It's a one conversation that a director needs to have or a producer needs to have. They walk in on their all hands meeting, the first one where you're talking to a production designer, you're talking to your prop department, you go, okay, on this one, we're not using any plastic water bottles. And they say, why? And they say, well, because we don't believe in it. And you have to come up with another solution. And they'll be like, cool, what do you think about this? And I'm like, great, that's awesome. And then you're done. That's done, you know?
Incentives, though, what about incentives? So we're getting to the end of the discussion. So I want us to talk about incentives, because that there is that vertical of that way, but there could also be a no on the other end of that door. So, like, what are the ways that incentives are working? How have people been able to use incentives? What incentives could we be using to make this process happen?
Well, I can speak to that really briefly from the behind the scenes on-set standpoint. Eliminating single-use plastic water bottles saves money over and over and over again. We see this. I think, we referenced The Amazing Spider-Man. is something in the ballpark of $30,000 was saved on a movie of that size, just on eliminating single-use plastics, right? So having the dispenser system, having refillable 5-gallon jugs, and all these things, it is a cost-saving effort. Yes, it requires the time and bandwidth to plan and create these solutions. But that to me is always the biggest lead when I have these conversations, is we've seen this save roughly this amount of money, this percentage of budget, you know, on that front. But I mean, in terms of like long-term environmental sustainable production incentives, I think that's something that's still very much lacking, that I think we can, you know, I know there's groups advocating for right now.
Yeah, we're working on it. We're working on it. I know I've talked to you about this briefly, but you know, we're working with the sustainability heads of the studios, which obviously that's not something we can do right now a second. But right before this, we were working on going to different tax incentive states, and specifically globally as well, talking to global film commissioners about doing an uplift. For people who don't understand uplifts, in states, they encourage spending, and they encourage it in several different ways. One is just your blanket, and then there are several uplifts. So if you get 20% just for shooting in a state, you get 5% for shooting rural, and you get another 5% for shooting on a stage. You get another 5% for using people who are, you know, indigenous to the state. You know, so if it was a 3% uplift to have a sustainable shoot, that would essentially offset any cost that a producer would say is charging the production. And so that's what we are trying to push through in various states, and we're working with the studios on it. But that is the incentive, Jordan, I think you were mentioning. And it's important to note that it takes a long time, but these states want to have these sort of things, because when they go back to their the tax, you know, the people who are being taxed in the state, they can say, not only did we bring work here, but we also were able to come up with an incentive formula that allowed for less waste in the state.
Yeah. What are some calls to action that our audience can take today? Quick ones. What are things that they can go and talk to their leadership about at all different parts of the food chain of influence? What are things they can ask for? What are things they can call out? What are certifications that are available that they should be aware that their studios could advocate for?
I'm waiting for you, Emellie, first.
I'll go first. That's fine.
Give it to us, or resources that we should be checking on.
Absolutely. Well, I would say if you are a person who works behind the scenes in production, really advocating for those single-use bans, whether you're a department head, whether you're a crew member, certainly if you're a producer, you're a line, like you're a decision maker, make that call. Like I've worked with producers who say, I will not pay for single-use plastic water bottles. That's not to say that you, crew member, can't go across the street and buy one if you want, but like I will, it cannot be purchased using production money. So really think about how we can use that buying power, and then reach out to organizations. Obviously reach out to us, like Earth Angel. Plastic Pollution Coalition has amazing resources on different water bottles that work great, and dispensers, and you know, so there's all kinds of amazing organizations out there that can help direct you and get you started if you're not sure. And then the last thing I'll just say is that this is so doable. It's more doable than we think it is. When I worked on a set that it was insane. It was a musical, and we were shooting in the peak summer. So we had dancers, we had background, everybody was like, this is impossible, it's not going to work. And as we were making it work over the course of this project, we had a scene that was, we were filming in the subway, and I overheard a conversation with a location manager say to the first AD, oh, this is probably the day where we should just forego this and bring in the plastic bottles, right? Like it's not going to work with the subway and the whatever. And I literally heard the first AD turn to the location manager and say, well, why would we do that? It's been working so well. Like I didn't even have to intervene. It just, you know, so this is the kind of crew mentality, culture shift change that, like, yes, it takes some hand holding at first, but it's so possible. And I think once you see it that way, you can't unsee it and you'll only work that way.
I'm just going to quickly say before Ellen, you know, follow us. Yeah. Follow us on Green for Emma on all of our socials. We have, along with obviously, you know, single-use plastic information, we are starting to roll out unique content weekly about green jobs, how to get them, about sustainable businesses, which ones to buy from, and of course about production. We are not going to be doing any Green Seal production certifications while the strike is happening. That is an internal decision that we have made. We will not be promoting anything AMPTP has anything to do with right now. And we hope that our partners at the studios understand that. That doesn't mean that Barbie and Oppenheimer didn't crush on their Green Seals. They did amazing. My head of communications is bummed. He had a Barbenheimer thing he wanted to put up, and we said that is not happening. But just know that 90% of the big studio productions you're seeing, TV and film, are already using our Green Seal program, are likely working with Emellie, and we are making the movements. It was very hard during COVID to stay honest with this because of the fact that they wouldn't let us not use single-use plastic with everything. But, ever since the floodgates have opened again earlier this year, we are right back to where we were before COVID, and we are going to change the industry.
Amazing, amazing. Final remarks for the people, Ellen.
Well, the pandemic was a green nightmare, but I'm really happy that we're coming out of that with the help of all of you. And look, and by the way, really proud of the SAG Awards, 15 years, EMA Green Seal. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah. We love working with you guys.
And thank you for bringing up, for example, Brita filters, that kind of modeling on camera that people can relate to, that are in a situation where like, well, what I do, that's really what I was talking about remembering the audience and helping them figure it out. Thank you.
Awesome. Any final remarks, Emellie? Earth Angels?
No, I think I said it all. Just grateful to be here and for this conversation and to see what impact we can all achieve together.
Thank you, everybody, for coming on here and listening to us for a little bit.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all for the work.
From Green Council too.
Thank you all for the work that you do. Thank you all. Thank you to our panelists, Ellen, Asher, and EOB, for joining us today and providing so much useful information and such a rich and valuable conversation about the solutions. It's important to focus on the solutions and the possibilities. And now I'll turn it back to Amelia. Thank you, Plastic Pollution Coalition.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for leading that amazing discussion with all of our fabulous panelists. Thank you all so much. Now, everyone, we'd like you to please mark your calendars for our next webinar, August 17th, Plastic Free Back to School. And if you haven't already, we invite you to join our global coalition. It is currently free to join as an individual, business, or nonprofit organization. You can connect with us on social media to learn more about our work. We will also be sending out a follow-up survey after the webinar and appreciate your feedback to help us improve our future events. We will also send out the recording of this webinar in the coming days so that you can share it with anyone who is unable to join us today. Thank you again to everyone for joining, and thanks also to our Plastic Pollution Coalition member groups and partners who shared this webinar with their communities and networks. We look forward to seeing you all at our next webinar on August 17th. See you soon.